Such a gentleman. You did great. The pressure, too much pressure, saving the best for last. Thank you all for sticking around. Thank you, Don, for once again having me join Hispanic Retail 360. It's always wonderful. It's always a pleasure, and I always learn a lot. And Armando, it's always a pleasure, and thank you, all of you, for sticking around. It's really wonderful, and I'm excited to be able to share. So, yesterday, Presidente Fox spoke about purpose, and 10 years ago, after spending, oh gosh, I don't want to date myself, but several years on the market research side and another several years on the advertising agency side, I decided that there was a void in the market because I felt that there were lots of great people that were doing fantastic work in market research and certainly the communications field in the advertising agency world. And where I really saw the void was in facilitating, in guiding, in helping companies become business ready to truly be and to truly have a foundation for success in the Hispanic market. So that essentially became my vision. After 10 years of being inside the walls of corporate America, I have heard many, many conversations. I've heard conversations of frustration, conversations of indifference, conversations of, gosh, passion. But most of all, I've heard tremendous conversations of perseverance. This particular lady sitting next to me is actually just a visionary leader in that sense. And so one of the things that really kind of drew me to write and to speak on this subject and to actually practice this particular part of the marketing profession is because I believe that without a strong foundation within your organizations, as many of us have alluded to over the last couple of days, it's almost impossible to be successful and to have our marketing programs work to the extent or to really take us the full way. I mean, we have some tremendously talented people in this room who've done tremendously powerful marketing programs for their clients, but at the end of the day, I can't help to say that we will fall short if there is not that foundation within the organization. Next slide. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing that. Hello. Okay. At times I think, gosh, are we in a time warp? Has Hispanic marketing really evolved in the last 20 years? I mean, really, let's really take a look at what's really happening out there. As I was mentioning before, as Armando mentioned before, I several years ago wrote a book called Marketing to Hispanics, only because the publisher insisted that the words Marketing to Hispanics be on the cover. But the full title of the book is called Marketing to Hispanics, A Strategic Approach to Assessing and Planning Your Initiative, to taking a strategic approach to doing this holistically. And after the 2010 census, and after now 5 years have gone by with the publishing of the book, I essentially have been shopping for publishers to write a new book. And publishers have essentially been telling me that there is a sense that corporate America today is in a much better position to be successful within the Hispanic market. And my response to that is that yes, there are certainly more internal experts within corporate America, right, that can lead marketing initiatives. There are certainly the resources for insights, the tools. Cesar's company, Geoscape, for example, the Latinum Network group who was talking to us about all the consumer insights that are available. David's company, New American Dimension. I mean, the insights are there. No one can question, right, that the information is there. So the resources are not an issue. There are more reach vehicles that we could have ever imagined, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to actually reach out to this consumer base. But at the end of the day, if you really think about it, Hispanic marketing is still very much driven by what happens outside of the organization, and really hardly at all with having a foundation for really creating strategic, sound, organizational, operational foundation. And the work there is still missing. The work there is still not happening to the extent that we've heard at the PepsiCos, to the extent that we're hearing now with Sears Holding Company. Those examples are very few and far in between, and with the inclusion of my friend Lisa Krantz over here. There is today still, as we've heard several folks mention again, very minimal involvement to creating that team to establish the how of how companies will actually implement on their growth priorities. Every year companies have their meetings with their entire organization, and the CEO stands up on a stage like this, and he basically tells the company sort of the state of the union, right? And he says, our company is going to grow, and it's going to grow by X%, and it's going to grow because of these 3 or 4 growth platforms that we've identified. And so go forward, my apostles, and essentially make it happen, right? And so here we are trying to essentially say, Hispanics can play a very significant role in that. However, what ends up happening is that we end up going outside and start working with this Hispanic marketing as an external force rather than first making it an internal force. And so is it any surprise, and a lot of us talk about right spend, is it any surprise that the spend today is still considered expendable and that it is only 1.2% of total ad spend in the country today? So the conundrum, as I talk about, I call it the conundrum, is, there's Hispanic marketing today. Where is it really in that strategic continuum, right? So what happens? The CEO says, these are the growth platforms. It's going to be about innovation. It's going to be about technology. It's going to be about, products and services. It's going to be about our e-commerce platform, whatever it is that has been identified as sort of the key to growth for the company, right? So there go all of the employees, and there go all these executives and all these divisions and all these groups, and they start to create, essentially, they gather all of these market insights and what are the dynamics and what's going to impact us and can we do it and what does the competition do it and so what are our chances with this? And they start to create groups and they start to implement, they start to create implementation strategies, right? There is no Hispanic marketing conversation. There is no Hispanic market conversation happening during any of these stages yet. These companies are essentially creating implementation strategies. They're writing operational plans. They're integrating these plans into the way the company does business. Okay? They're creating processes. All right? And they're creating organizational structures to be able to affect and take those growth platforms forward. Nowhere in any of this, for the most part, has anybody said, or has any contribution from the Hispanic market insight standpoint been included. So then you get to, okay, let's activate, let's launch, and all of a sudden you end up with these phenomenal strategic assets, right, that we're all as companies very proud of, but which have very little relevance to this Hispanic market that we want to be able to say is contributing to our bottom line, right? So if it's about innovation, when you've got this new product or new technology platform, when we talk about metrics, you need to be able to say 2% of all of our bottom line growth came from Hispanic related to this growth platform that the company identified at the beginning of the year. That isn't happening. What is happening is that everybody takes off and they're activating and they're doing all these really neat things with digital assets in stores and all different types of programs around health and healthy eating and fashion, and all of this is being activated. And then all of a sudden we have a group of people, the multicultural group, which is essentially working with external agents, external resources, creating a Hispanic marketing program, which is completely disconnected from the rest of what's going on in the company. and I may be exaggerating, and obviously there are shades of gray, you know, as we talk about this continuum, but generally, this is what's happening in corporate America today. So how can we possibly hope, okay? How can we possibly hope to make an impact, all right, to be able to report on ROI that management cares about, when the ROI that we're trying to prove is related to Hispanic marketing that is out of context to where the company is growing in terms of what they've identified. Make sense? Good. So what I propose is that in order for companies to be successful, in order for us to be able to get the attention, right? In order for us to be able to prove that the Hispanic market is contributing to those growth platforms, we have to be able, you know, as internal corporate executives, to be able to enable the Hispanic marketing piece to start right here, right? Where the total market insights, including Hispanic, are happening right here. So, and that when we're developing those stakeholder teams, that also is including the multicultural group that's within the organization. And when those implementation strategies are that we're actually benefiting from a lot of the insights that you guys have shared in this room today, all right, and yesterday and the day before, and that's being considered as we're devising ways to implement the strategy for that particular growth platform. And that when the ops plans are being written, that they are actually Hispanic, and that particular relevant piece of it is actually integrated into that particular area's plan, and that those processes are relevant to that market, and that the structure is there to support it, so that you can activate, and you can activate relevantly. Make sense? It's impossible. It's impossible to be effective. It's impossible to report relevant ROI that management cares about. All right? No one has an ear. No CEO has an ear for the fact that you just raised awareness for a campaign that is touting something that doesn't tie back to that growth platform that he identified. Nobody cares. They'll say, oh, good for you, good for you. You know, they might give you another $1 million and then go off and play with that for a little bit. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm being very direct, but that's really what we've seen work, and that's the reason why it's only 1.2% of total ad spend today. Because we're not tying back our efforts, we're not putting it in context with what the company cares about. I keep forgetting that I have to click this. So, in the work that I do with companies, I employ what I call the 4C solution. What I believe to be catalysts for strategic integration and financial performance. And these are commitment throughout the organization, not just marketing. This is building competency within the organization, the education piece,